Hi everybody, a very warm welcome to everybody here in this room and everybody who is joining us virtually via the live stream. Welcome to this All About Culture call. All About Culture is a live format, where we invite internal and external speakers to share their view on company culture related topics, where we want to create a platform for open dialogue with external partners, customers, so that we can get inspired to continue our journey and further develop our living culture. Today we will talk about business ethics, a topic which becomes more and more important every day. Since this is a live stream, everybody who is virtually joining us can post their questions via chat. Our internal speakers today are Adel, who we know as the CEO of T-Systems, our Chief Compliance Officer Manuela Mackert, and our external guest today is Markus Ehrle, Senior Vice President at Salesforce, responsible for the German key accounts and very experienced in the technology industry for many years. Thank you all very much for being here today, and especially you, Markus, for joining us and taking the time and the effort. So now let's get started. As said, today's topic is business ethics, and Manuela, perhaps you can share a bit about what it exactly is.
Why? Because corporate ethical scandals occur again and again, despite moral appeals from politics and society. And so I think business ethics must be restored, because it is about people, why people do what. And so we have to analyze this. And business ethics is about trust and transparency. And this means ethical behavior must be underlined by your words and your deeds. And these especially from the leaders, because leaders are responsible to guide the employees. Business integrity is the behavior of the individual one. And so you see both aspects come together because there is an interrelation and interdependence. Business ethics, what we expect as a company from our employees, you cannot divide from business integrity, because it's your own part how you behave in certain situation in a very ethical manner.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So you've mentioned that it is important, and why is it important in the workplace within DT?
Because it is a competitive advantage, and it's a key differentiator in the market if you behave in an ethical, trustful manner. So employees see it as a very necessity to see that we behave in an ethical manner as leaders. And they really have a strong demand that working together, and when working together, it is under ethical principle. And so they are asking that leaders give them the help, or they are helping how to develop in a very specific manner their ethical skills, the value-driven action, and what it does mean for themselves in dilemma situation. So they want, and there is a strong demand for an ethical framework, how to behave and which kind of reflection point they do have to find the right solution in a specific situation.
Thank you very much. So Adel, Manuela just explained why it is important and why it plays an important role in the workplace. And we as a company, we take ethics very seriously. We have our guiding principles. So what does the guiding principle, act with respect and integrity, mean for DT?
Great. Well, look, overall, the guiding principles that we have is our roadmap within DT that we live up to what's right and what's fair, both inside and outside of the company, because we're always representing ourselves as a company, as part of the company. When you think about right, it's all about the context of moral and ethical, right? So you're not departing from those things. And when you think about fair, it's about inclusion. It's about making sure that you're giving people the opportunity to express themselves, that you listen to them, that you don't blame others, that you are fact-based rather than emotional. So that's what it means. And when you really think about respect and integrity, That specific guiding principle, it talks about those things: respect for others, opinions, ideas, points of view. At integrity, it's about you are not only compliant with the law, which is foundation, but you're also ethical about the things that you do.
That somehow sounds also like our T mindset at T-Systems.
It sure is.
So, and why is business ethics also important for our investors, in example, or how we are rated as a company?
Well, think about it this way. If you as an individual investors, if you put yourself in our investor shoes who look for companies that build value, that deliver value, not just necessarily profits, but of course a solid profit company is great, but also value to the society, right? And their perspective is typically long-term, right? It's not a month, it's not a year, it's typically several years investing in a company. They want to invest in a company that is compliant in law, that is ethical in how they believe, how they act, and that represents what's right and what's fair. That's why the investors look at it. And that's why there are a lot of examples. By the way, just last week, there were several examples of companies finding issues in their accounting principles or how did they deploy certain contracts. And when you look at the investors' reaction to that, it's very brutal. If you're found to be guilty or non-compliant or non-ethical, your stock takes a hit.
Yes.
A big one. That's why it's important.
Yep. Thank you. Very clear, very clear. So now over to you, Markus, because when I earlier introduced you, I didn't mention that besides being responsible for the German key accounts at Salesforce, you are also responsible for the topic of equality. And you are very actively involved in the non-profit organization of Salesforce, supporting educational projects of needy children in Africa and Cambodia. So what does business ethics mean to Salesforce?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. It's really a pleasure. And Deutsche Telekom and Salesforce are amazing partners since almost 10 years now. And we both share a lot of our values, you know. And Salesforce is a very value-driven company with trust, customer success, innovation, and equality at the heart of our values. And as Manuela said, there cannot be trust without ethics and integrity being a foundational part of any company. And it's really about and up to every employee at the company to safeguard this trust each and every day in big and small moments. And sometimes it's things which are starting with awareness. You know, is it okay to invite a customer to a football game, or is it okay to send a TV or flowers to a customer? And there are bigger moments where companies and employees are confronted with situations where partners or customers are trying to bribe with money. And these are the situations when there has to be a big awareness, and this is starting with training. You know, we need to train every employee every single day, every year, continuously on what it means. When does critical moments start and where do critical moments end? And it's sometimes very individual from an interpretational point of view. And this is why we are taking this very serious.
And how does Salesforce live and show the importance of business ethics?
I mean, that's something I think in the best way, try to give you an example. You know, I mean, a couple of years back, we didn't have really an ethics office integrated our company, even that we had a code of conduct and all the rules and what needs to be done and what cannot be done. But our CEO, Mark Benioff, was on his well-deserved PTO in Hawaii when you probably have heard about a moment when the Homeland Security Organization in the US was trying to separate families at the borders of Mexico. And at the same time, this organization is a customer of Salesforce using our technology. And our employees went really mad about that, you know, and they were curious to know what is Salesforce doing to make sure that our technology is not used to support this organization on separating families. And they tried to reach out to Mark. They couldn't reach him because he was on PTO. And then some employees went to the press and they wrote open letters about their concerns and the ethical use of our technology. And when Mark came back, he took this as a starting point to really put even more power and even more awareness into this topic at Salesforce. And he basically hired an officer of ethics and integrity, and we implemented Ethics Force, which is a website where every employee is encouraged to stand up every single day if he or she is having concerns about the business ethics and empowering also the leadership. It cannot be a topic which is starting and ending with the CEO of the board of directors. It has to be something which every employee and every leader in the organization is taking very, very serious every single day.
Thank you. So, but that was really a firm statement made by the company. So Salesforce is building a culture of responsible technology. What is meant by that exactly?
Yeah, as I just try to touch a little bit, we have a very high commitment to make sure our technology is used in the best ethical way. And innovation is coming so fast that most normal users who are not tech experts really don't understand anymore what the possibility of this technology is. And we have seen probably a lot of the news in the last couple of years where many companies, especially in the social media area, were named the new nicotine and driving people into addictions by using this technology. And I think in the end of the day, technology per definition, and mainly artificial intelligence, which is one of the key innovations in our day-to-day business, is not bad per definition. It's like a gun, probably you can describe it. You know, it's unless you use it against humans, it's just a piece of technology. And this is why we are having a lot of colleagues in the organization making sure that our technology is not used against humans, especially in the business context. For example, artificial intelligence should not be making recommendations on what are high-performing or low-performing employees, which can ultimately turn into a termination of an employment contract. And these are the kind of things where we're continuously monitoring every piece of our innovation, making sure that this is not going to happen.
Wow, impressive. Thank you. So I would like to ask Adel another question. So we live in very strange times at the moment with the pandemic. What is the role of business ethics in these times? How does COVID influences it?
Look, as COVID hit us, of course, the biggest focus we had as a company was on the health and safety of the employees, and then learning how to work in a new environment, right? Because we all had to adjust, right? Working from home, working remotely, not being there to observe the behaviors or the actions of the employees, not being able to react real time because things are digital and so on. So it becomes even more challenging to ensure that the organization does not forget about your guiding principles, does not forget about your code of ethics and that you want to deploy. So you have to work extra hard at it. We have to, and how do you do that? You remind employees, you remind them as often as you can, like we're doing today, right? The purpose of today is to remind everybody why ethics are important, why compliance is important, why do we live by our guiding principles. So you have to do the extra mile in this COVID environment in order to make sure that the organization doesn't forget as they adjust to the new normal and the new way of working that will be very different going forward than what we had before, but still comply with what's right and what's fair, part of our guiding principles.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Do you recognize that as well within Salesforce, Markus?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a very critical time for all of our employees, and like Adel said, it's also psychological safety, which is very important. I mean, employees feel very, very confused sometimes, sitting at home all the time. There's no human interaction anymore. You're not talking to your colleagues at a coffee corner and discussing topics which are mentally on your mind. And on top of that, I mean, I think like Deutsche Telekom, we are benefiting somehow from a commercial point of view, and we are still a very fast-growing company, and we need to hire and recruit and retain our employees. And I think in an environment where our own employees don't feel safe and psychologically safe, and if outside potential candidates don't seeing Salesforce as a potential employer which gives and provides this safety, then it's even more difficult to recruit and hire the best talents in the market right now. And I think this is one of our fastest challenge. We cannot serve our customers in the best way. We cannot grow as we try and want to grow if we're not able to recruit the best candidates in the market.
Yeah. Thank you, Markus. So Manuela, can you perhaps share an example out of your current or your previous roles where you experienced an ethical matter at hand, and how did you deal with that?
Oh yeah, well, during my personal career, I had two moments where I was really shocked, and they affect me until today. And the first time I was asked to put bad light on my superior. And so they show me this would be a chance to climb up the career ladder. The other time it was I should spread rumors about a colleague, such as the top management was saying. And so I denied for sure the offer. Mm-hmm. The first time I decided that I left the company. The second time I decided I will have a clear stand. And I told them when they asked me, what is my problem? I told them, my problem is that I do not pursue my career at the expenses of others. Mm-hmm. And so I took a clear stand, and that was so important for me, and it makes me even stronger, even if I felt that they left me behind the scenes and they put me in a corner a little bit. But it makes me stronger, and I decided that I would like to stay as I am, and so I decided that I will take a mantra. And my mantra is, define your success on your own terms. Yes. Achieve your success by your own rules, and build a life you could be proud of, because this makes it possible to get the real friends and to get the real company who will be proud that you act or your action will be value-based.
Yes. And where you can continue to look yourself into the mirror that you did the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So Adel, Markus just explained that the power of technology is immense, and how Salesforce keeps their responsibility towards society. How do you look at that?
Well, I look at it exactly the same. I was very interested in the example that Markus used. I mean, that is a real great example of a company standing behind their true beliefs and being true to it, right? And it's not easy. It's not easy when you know, do you take a public stand? Do you impact your customer because they're using your technology and a big profitable customer? So to me, as technology is becoming more and more obvious component of the livelihood of many companies, whether they are in pure technology company like Salesforce, but company that builds some things, or technology is now becoming kind of the bloodline of what you do. You're so dependent on software or on AI or in machine learning in order to be competitive in the marketplace. It's even more critical that you declare what are your standards, what is good enough, what are your beliefs, and what are you going to stand behind. And we as Deutsche Telekom, in our purpose statement, we will not stop until everyone is connected, are sending a very clear message of inclusion. Mm-hmm. We don't want anybody to be left behind, right? Whether it's connecting to a network or connecting to a technology or having access to data, we want everybody to have the opportunity to do it. It also means we will not tolerate people who differentiate or who put other minorities or different cultural background or sexual orientations or your beliefs and began to put them at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. We are an inclusive company, right? And we send that very clearly through our purpose. And we are a technology company, right? We know how our technology can be used, just like an example of Salesforce. Therefore, we make it clear in our statement, our purpose statement, and then we make sure that we live by that purpose statement. So if you're a technology company, you have to be thinking very hard about how you do that, and then how do you, if you're faced with a situation like Salesforce is faced with, how do you stand up and really live by it?
Thank you. Thanks, Adel. So Markus, Can you recall perhaps a situation where you really had to consider what the right thing to do was? So,
yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from. So maybe a little step back to me personally. You know, I mean, I grew up in the 1970s in the Black Forest in Germany, and when I was a kid, I was playing with all my friends, and it was just normal that all the friends had their mothers at home taking care of the kids and providing them with food and all kind of mental and moral support they needed to grow up. You know, and if there was one mom who was working, it was under the kids like the common sense, like, oh, they have a problem in the family, they don't have enough money, the mother has to work, or they're divorced. You know, which was in the 1970s a big topic in Germany. And I never really thought about this until in the late 20s, early 30s, you know, and when I grew up in the business world and started to be a first-line manager, hiring and recruiting people, I know from the bottom of my mind, I was slightly preferring to hire male employees because I was always having in my DNA, in my mind, coming from where I am, that at some point those women will stay at home and they will not be available for me. And only when I started to be self-reflecting and had support from my employer at the time and some academic approach, I realized that a lot of the decisions I'm doing every single day are driven by the way how I grew up. And I think this is why it's so important to me, and this is why I'm so committed to equality in the company. I think many things, we don't think about them. Nobody told us to do so. We do them because we grew up, and I think there are similar examples in every single country, in every single region, in every single culture. And therefore, it's really great to have those kind of sessions to encourage people to self-reflect, to think about where are they, what are they doing, and why are they doing what they're doing every single day. And I think since then, I'm continuously trying to work against my DNA to make sure I'm always acting ethical and inclusive.
so you learned it during the times and you reflect on it, which is super important. So I'm very curious what more ethical behavior can look like, and what do we then see people doing? Manuela, can you shed some light on that?
Oh, with reflect to technology, it's important that we have to decide if we want to be part of a trend or not. Because if this trend, like Markus described and Adel, there could be a risk in, and we as leader, we have to understand the technology. And only this make it possible that we recognize if there is an ethical risk in and how to access the risk, because we have to give the guidance to our employees and to enable them to find the reflection points, to find the right sparring partner, to set a moral compass, so that they know how they can deal in their personal and working environment on one hand side, because often now it's time of uncertainty. And on the other hand side, it's a time of so many influence to know so many things. It's a complexity, what makes it so difficult for them to react. And so the leader must be an authority to set goals for the employees, to know what is the next point to go, because there is no solution often in the beginning, but the way and the path, step by step, is a solution. Then there must be credibility and responsibility to have an open mind to discuss with the employees if they have obstacles seen or what kind of dilemmas are there, to speak up together, to discuss, to be open-minded. And therefore, a leader must be accountable. And this means what you're talking about, you should do. Words and deeds are in harmony.
Yes.
This is what will help the employees and set the frame.
Yeah. So we expect from leaders to be role models, but that responsibility is, of course, also, it applies also to the colleagues to do it, and not only wait for leaders to role model the behavior, but to do it themselves as well. So we have a code of conduct within DT, and Markus, I heard you say Salesforce has one as well. Could you both share some insights on the code of conduct? Because I can imagine that not everybody is aware of it, and what is important of it? What does it exist of?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said before, it's a mandatory topic in our company. Every employee has to do this kind of trainings, and we of course use our technology to educate our employees. And 100% education is absolutely mandatory and required, because it's very difficult in this always changing world to have a common understanding on what does it really mean. And I think the best example is what we are seeing every day here in our own country here in Germany with the way how we manage our COVID regulations. You know, what is allowed? Can I go out at 9 in the evening when the incidence is 150? Can I go to the shop? Yes or no? And I think if you have this kind of unclarity in your employee base, there's no way that you will ever have a culture of ethics and integrity. It has to be very crystal clear. It has to be very black and white. What is allowed, what is not allowed, on top of common sense. Of course, we're using common sense every single day, but this is not enough. It really has to be written down, rock solid, and that's what we're pushing throughout the entire organization continuously.
Do you have something to add to that, Manuela?
Yes, we have our code of conduct and as well a reflection of the guiding principle, respect and integrity. And so there are based our action on common sense, on common principle, honesty, respect, credibility, accountability, open mindset. This is a necessity of our culture. And it begins with people, it ends with people, trust in people. Trust is the most important factor. Shared value, as Markus referenced to, and for share, like Adel described it before, shared vision. To have a common goal, you have to bring in yourself as a personality. It must become a part of your DNA. And so this creates, again, trust, credibility, and reputation. That is so important. As Adel described, the situation with the dialogue with the investors, with our customers, with our partners. This is a core factor. And so we as the Deutsche Telekom, we decided how we want to achieve success. It is just as important as to be successful. Because this is a reputation, and it is everything about reputation.
Yeah.
Yes. How you achieve success is as important as being even more important than just being successful.
Yes. So, you know that already, Adel. I work on the cultural transformation of T-Systems. So, is there anything from your perspective, Manuela or Markus, because you are biased, so therefore I don't ask you, what we should or shouldn't do to create an ethical culture? Any tips?
Start, please, Markus.
Yes, I mean,
join.
I said many times, I think you should never assume that this is happening by itself. You know, I mean, it really requires a continuous and it's a long journey. It's not something which is happening in 6 months or a year, but it has to be continuously driven from the leadership team. You know, you have to have this as part of the employment contract or the KPI of every leader in the organization, that there is 100% participation in trainings with regards to ethics and integrity. And that's what we are doing, you know. I mean, in some companies, we even go as far as termination of employment if people are not taking this serious. It's not obviously possible in every country, but you can definitely in every country put a KPI in the bonus plan of your leadership teams that there is 100% participation required with regards to trainings with ethics and integrity.
For sure, clear guidance, clear reflection points. This is so important to get this and use a crisis as a positive momentum. Even in the first time, it is a burden. But it helps yourselves to be more innovative. And if you have sparring partners, they will help you to design a new environment and to be innovative and to have the opportunity to train yourself all the time to become a better of yourself. And this means for sure business ethics is the foundation of the new working environment with regard for new technology and as well for the new condition with this physical distance, and find a new modus to discuss with another and to find a new relationship with leaders, with employees, with role models, and with the society and with yourself.
So before I go look in the chat tool what kind of questions came in from the participants on the live stream, I want to ask if you have anything to add? I asked several questions, you gave several answers, but is there anything that you would like the colleagues who are in the live stream which you would like them to know that I perhaps did not ask? Or
No, I think you asked very good questions, Jaisa, but I think what people need to take away from this is it's ethical behavior. Integrity is not just a nice to have. It's a foundation of how we want to behave and how we want to run the company and how we want to move forward and how we get to success, right? We take this very, very seriously at Deutsche Telekom. And that was, as you know, a foundation of our team mindset, right? Yes. Teaching people how to deal with each other, how to cooperate, how to progress into the future. So that would be just a reminder, if you will, for the discussion.
Thank you. Anything from you to add?
Yeah, maybe one more point. I mean, we were talking a lot about what makes our company stronger with regards to these topics, but I think we also have a great opportunity as businesses, a huge platform for change, And just to give you one more example, how impactful this behavior can be also to the outside world is like a few years ago, the governor of the state of Indiana in the United States was proposing a law that businesses could refuse doing business with gay and lesbian people. And Mark Benioff, our CEO, went totally crazy when he heard about that, and he basically called up the governor of Indiana and said, I mean, we have 3,000 employees in Indianapolis, and we have a big development center there. And if this law will pass, then we will put every employee back into other states, and we will not continue to invest a single dollar in the state of Indiana. And then he called all his CEO friends from Cisco and many other companies and asked them to also jump in. And as you can imagine, after many people were very angry and sent very angry messages to this governor, this law was taken back and thankfully and gratefully never went into place. And I think this is also what we sometimes underestimate, like how much power we have as businesses to support not only our own customers and partners, but our societies and everybody around us by standing up and by showing commitment to this kind of unfair behavior.
Wow.
That was a firm statement. Boom. Yes. Okay. Let me look in the chat what I see there with regards to questions. I see here these days some words of our former German Federal President Wolf came to mind. Not everything that is legal is appropriate or adequate. What do you think this might mean for DT in concrete? I think it's a good question for you.
If we are in an M&A deal, let me just jump in because it is a hard-driven topic and then I have to apologize. So if we are in an M&A topic and we maybe are in a specific country, and so the question is if in a country it is allowed to do something legally, and it's legally, but we as compliance or we as DT board management or we as company decide that we have our ethical standard and we see maybe it is legally to do and appropriate to do it so in this country, we will deny to follow the rules. And we already had cases and deal project where we decided the environment is okay from the legal perspective, but we as Deutsche Telekom, we want to be responsible and share our value-driven action. And this is not a deal we think we can successfully from our part because there are some demands it does not fit to our DNA. And that is really the life and the responsibility of the board. And I was very grateful that they supported me here.
Yep. Look, Markus has given multiple examples to answer this question right? Just now, right? And, if the law in Indiana would have passed, right, and then they don't employ gay, lesbian population. Now you are legally compliant with the law if you do that. But is that ethically correct? Is that what you believe as a company?
Yeah.
And Mark stood up for that. And there would be many examples, like another example that Manuela just used. So your ethical compass is really important because there are laws that could be unethical, maybe unintentionally. The one you described, Markus, is very intentional of being unethical, that you need to stand up for.
Yes.
So the compass is not just legal framework. The compass is also what are your ethical standards as a company? What's your integrity as an enterprise and where you work? So yeah, for sure. They're not synonymous. Ethical and legal is not synonymous today.
No, indeed. Yeah. Did you ever had a situation where you had that at hand, where it was difficult to decide,
yes.
do we do this? Yes?
Yes, many times in my career, and not too long ago we had some issues as well. Look, when sometimes behaviors, when people do it, are potentially unintentional, but the outcomes of those are very clearly unethical. They may not have thought like that in the beginning. And when that happens, you have to take a stand. You can't just sweep it under the rug and say, well, it's okay, they didn't mean it. No. I have many examples when we were faced with that and we had to stand up and send a clear message that we're not tolerating that, or we will do something about that.
And do the colleagues then in the organization know about that, or is that something that happens and we continue business and actually the work people don't know about it?
Well, ideally, you need to find ways to share the learning.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to, right? And then it becomes, how do you do that without violating individuals' privacy as well, right? Yeah. So you got to be ethical in that too. Right? Because that is ethic as well, and that somebody's privacy cannot be violated when something happens. But we try very hard to collect these lessons, and even if we have to anonymize them in a certain way, right? To share them. Yeah. That this kind of behavior is not a good one. We've seen it in the organization, and that we don't tolerate. Yeah. And here's the reason why we don't tolerate it. What are the unintended consequences when we do something like that?
Thank you. Thanks. So another question, and it's at first addressed to you, Markus. Could you give us some examples of how you create awareness and passion for topics of ethical behavior within Salesforce?
Yeah, I mean, again and again, it comes to education. So we started a few years back to work with, I hope I'm not making a commercial here, with Korn Ferry, but they're our partner to help us and educate us in ethical behavior, and this is really about putting people together in a room and asking the right questions and creating this awareness what it really is, and it's all kind of topics, and it's you can easily mix them, but I mean, we've spoken about many situations where there's an unfair treatment of female employees, and still even at Salesforce we have this kind of discussions, or had this kind of discussions, and if you're not taking this serious, it's like equality, for example. It's not about gender balance, it's much more. It goes much deeper. It's about how do you create an equal kind of workforce within your organization with people who are introvert or extrovert. And then what is an introvert? What is an extrovert? I think an extrovert in Germany would be an introvert in the United States, because it's just a different culture, and we work in global environments, in global companies, and there's not like one size fits all, and I think this is the biggest challenge for international companies like Salesforce and also Deutsche Telekom, that you have to make this local and regional, and you have to take everybody on this train and continuously work with them and share your experience and also discuss them, because I'm sure we don't have all the answers, and you probably don't have all the answers. What is ethic? What is non-ethic? I think this is part of the culture you describe, you build on the way forward, and you just want to be and making sure that you are the best employer in the market, that you're the best business partner, and that you're ultimately taking best care of your customers. And I think this is our mission, and this is an ongoing mission, and I can only give everybody the tip: self-reflect, take this opportunity to go into trainings, and you can always learn.
Thanks. Anything to add from either of you?
I think that was greatly covered. So.
Exactly, yeah. So another one, and it's related to your story that you shared, Manuela. It's appreciated sharing your personal story and of even leaving a company instead of building a career on the back of someone else. How do you see the role of leadership in such situations? Would you address such a topic with your superior?
Good question. Today I would do. I was young when it came to the first time where I should put the bad line on my superior, and I was really frustrated. I shared this with my superior because he was really a wise man, and I told him that I'm in the dilemma because I was asked from his superior to do so. And he asked me, wow, how open you are. This is a kind of relationship he never expected from a young woman who was just climbing up the career ladder. But I told him, this is my backbone, and I have to quit because I cannot stay any longer because I know that he had to go in early retirement. And so it was quite interesting. A few years later, his superior, who was a board member of a company, he met me and he asked me, Mrs. Mackert, did you have ever the opportunity to conduct such a career I would have offered you? And I told him, even if it was a board member, yes, I did. Because I could now take a clear stand. And then, and this was amazing, this person asked me, please come back to my company. And I denied again. And I told him, because I do not want to work with you. You are not my role model, and I cannot rely on you, and I think I can learn nothing. And so the only learning is that I know that I am open enough, strong enough to say no, thank you. Wow. And this is what I would like to share with other people. It is not easy.
No.
And there was a lot of discussion afterwards with my husband and with very close friends because they asked me, how could you do maybe much money, a lot of opportunities? But I told them, no, it's not my personality. But it was wonderful to have these friends to find out that in the end, they really loved it and they supported it.
Wow.
And hopefully that was the answer of the question.
Well, I can't check, but I think so. I think so. And it led you to us, so we are happy. I have another question for Adel. Don't do evil things is sometimes easy said. But what about not doing things that things don't go wrong, which are then the silent sin, so to say? Not saying anything.
Not saying anything.
That's not so.
Look, I don't know if the question is referring to like what examples what Manuela is giving. You never want to force an individual to say something they're not comfortable. I mean, if I was the boss in the company that Manuela was talking about, my hope would be that an employee who is exposed to something like that has the courage to speak up or uses the channels that we have. Anonymous, raising the concerns through anonymous channels that we have as a company. You hope that's the case. But that will not be the case with every employee. Mm-hmm. There will be employees that are going to be concerned, whether because they are very early in their careers or they are so highly dependent on the company and cannot have any risk in losing their job, or their personalities just look, I'm not going to deal with that, right? I'm just going to be quiet and I'm going to suffer internally. Mm-hmm. So you have to deal as a company to deal with all of these issues, which is why we speak about it openly, which is why we encourage people to behave in a certain behavior. And even if an employee doesn't speak up about a situation that they're faced because that's just not them, we want them to behave differently. We want them to do what Manuela did, which is, I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Right? And somehow be sweet and nice and, to their boss because you need the job and you're young, but not engage in a behavior like that. So that's what we hope through education and through openness, and encourage people to also speak up if they want to speak up.
And can we do something there with regards to trust?
Yeah, well, look, trust underpins everything here, right? And the trust goes back to how do you ensure the company follows you? And it goes back to the leader's behavior is the moral compass of the company, right? If leaders don't behave, with the guiding principles that you have as a company, you have no chance. Mm-hmm. You have no chance for them because employees look up to your leaders, right? And if you have somebody who's looking the other way to say, okay, it's okay, we're going to ignore this behavior, then that encourages employees to repeat that behavior, right? So that's not acceptable. right? So the way you eradicate that is you got to make sure that you live by your guiding principles, that you do it, that you stand by them, that you're vocal about it as a company and as leaders.
Thank you. So another question for Manuela. Manuela, you described 2 difficult situations in your business life. Where can employees get help if they get in such a situation and are not sure what to do?
Difficult question. Because as Adel described, it is not easy often to understand whom you can trust. It's really difficult. And even if you think you can trust a person, often you will be shocked if there are a specific situation you find out, even if you work for a long period with a person, the person is not trustful. Because sometimes there are specific agenda behind. I don't want to label them hidden agendas. But often the circumstances are so difficult and so complex that maybe the person you would like to ask is in an environment that he cannot go the truth path. So I think, and what helps me, and hopefully nobody will laugh, but what helps me, I try to do meditation. I like to go into the forest, to be with myself, to get these clearance, reference points, and reflection. And if I think about the situation which really bother me or where I'm insecure, I find out where I'm with myself in confidence, who I could ask. And it is interesting and it is making me laughing. Why? Because yesterday I took the decision because I had last weekend where I took my walk into the wood because I had a question to solve and I was not quite sure, and even my husband, I thought maybe could be not the right person to discuss this with. And then I decided, I found out in my private portfolio and relationship, there is a person, a wise man, sorry for this, not a woman, a wise man, who is...
Some men are wise.
Sometimes they are perfect because it was a top manager and now he is free because he's an elderly person and he is open. He does have 3 daughters, sometimes a good opportunity. And I just want to find a way. And it was fantastic. All of a sudden, it was a discussion for an hour. And so I think, make your clearance with yourself. What are the points which are very important for you to get a clearance? And then find out who is really a person you can trust and you feel better afterwards. And sometimes it needs times because I guess it's a quality check to find the right person. And even in the first moment, it is not the right person. But I guess only the dialogue with a person you can trust, and you will find a person with a trust factor and respect factor. Then go to another one. And go into a dialogue and find out if maybe step by step to get the pieces that make your picture more clear.
Yeah. To collect the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So how would you deal with that, Adel?
With
such a situation when you have to think of a solution?
Look, I'm gonna deal with it, right? I am not shy about situations like this, right? And again, it's the variance on personalities, right? It's a huge variance. For me, I taught myself through and by the way, I was in my career at phases where I didn't know how to deal with certain things. But I learned over time that for me, it's very important to have people you trust, right? Very important because you will always have a chance to do it. But I like to confront the situations up front, right? And if I'm faced with something, uncomfortable, something, that I like to talk about it. I like to, even with a person who is putting me in this situation, I like to be transparent about it. And then I have my circle of trusted advisors. My wife being the top of the list, my father, my mother being also, experienced in life, right, to go and talk to them, and my kids.
Yes.
Because I think, Markus, you said something that may be ethical in your mind, may be viewed differently. I'm lucky because I got kids between 20-year-old and almost 30, so they span a few generations. And I use them quite a bit in situations that are even, I am a little confused about. Just to say, what do you think? Like a young person like you, how do you think about the situation? So I'm more kind of heads-on,
Yes.
upfront about it.
Yeah, but luckily we are all different, right?
Exactly.
We do what
There's
works
no
for
right or
us.
wrong. You
No,
just got to do it
indeed.
the way
What suits you.
you feel. So that's why I'm saying when people are faced with these things, we have to take into account that not everybody's going to speak up. Not everyone is going to tell you they're uncomfortable or they're faced something that is unethical or they observed something that they're very concerned about, right? And you need to cater to that. That is okay. But you as a company need to cater to that to give opportunities for everybody to be comfortable and bring the issues up.
Yes, they can choose to use it or not, or
Yes.
what works. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have another question for Markus. How is the topic business ethics addressed from the customer side or partner side in our case, perhaps?
I mean, I don't think there's a difference between partners, customers, or employees. In the end of the day, I also agree with everything which was said by Manuela and Adel. But again, there's not one size fits all. I think there might be one person might be dealing well with going to the forest, but if you live in Mexico City, it's going to take you a while before you find the next quiet forest. And not everybody has a wife or kids or friends or the experience to work with, and also the culture is, I think, a very important point. I think in some cultures, it's not appropriate to make these decisions because it's not part of the culture, especially if you look into Asia. I think I would think of many cultures who would have a problem, even if they had the experience and even if they had the meditation in the forest, but they would never ever make this decision on their own. So I think having this kind of again, referring to Salesforce, this kind of ethic force or whatever you call it, kind of office of ethics and integration. If I'm in such a situation, I would send an email to ethics@salesforce.com, and then there would be people in the background working with that case, and they would reply to me in a very digital way. This is what you need to consider, and is it more okay or not so much okay? And in the end of the day, they would allow me to make the ultimate decision, but I would have an independent, anonymous kind of reference point which would help me. And this is also our customers. They can send to the same email address if they have the feeling that we are not working in an ethical way, and also the customers would be considered, of course. I mean, even more important than employees, because it's all about the customer success in the end,
Do we have something like that within DT?
For sure. For sure. We have the Ask Me portal if you need guidance. And on the other hand side, if you think, oh, there is maybe a misconduct behind that, we have our Tell Me portal. And this is an anonymous portal where if you don't want to give us more information about you because you have concerns or you are too shy or introverted, you can go into a dialogue with us, but it's completely anonymously, and it is supported by an external operator. So this is really an opportunity in even this time. When COVID started, the first lockdown, we had a lot of questions. And what I'm really proud of, that our employees often felt so open that they directly contact us and ask us, we want to make it possible that Deutsche Telekom is successful. We have a specific item with a contract or with a supplier, and he is asking for specific cars, and I do want to dig deeper in this. And so we have a bad feeling. And the gut was completely right. And I was proud of our employees. And so we tried to support them. And on the other hand side, it was for sure, and it was in the press because it happened to many, many companies, the automotive industry was really suffering. And we had really a wonderful key accountant. He came to us and asked us, please, compliance team, there is an issue. I don't want to lose my partner. I think they are suffering. We have to be strong together. We have to find a common sense. How could we divide the personal interest, maybe, the contract issue, the partnership relation? And so we found an opportunity, like an onion, where you can peel one skin after the other and find out step by step what is the really right approach. And in the end, I guess now, and this was a feedback from our colleagues, now the foundation is wonderful, because we try to find solution. And so what I always see is you need an empathic lens. Why do people, supplier, customer, partners, employees, think to understand what is the roots and where you can help? be open-minded.
Thank you. Wow. So I have here one question to all. Does integer behavior pay off? Does the customer really pay more for ethical products and services?
I can start with that. Long term, yes, but it's not about customer paying more, right? That's not the foundation of integrity. It's about you being a citizen of a society, a citizen of the country, a citizen of the world, and moving it forward, right? And moving it forward at the right direction with the right behaviors and the right outcomes, right? So, yes, long term it absolutely does pay off. Even as short term, it could be very difficult, right? But I'm a big believer that without it, you cannot be successful in a long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are very privileged to work for such amazing companies. I mean, I'm working now for almost a decade with Deutsche Telekom, and I mean, the culture you guys are having is really outstanding. And I think this is our responsibility, not only as leaders, but also for every single employee to safeguard this culture and to make sure that we can bring this forward for the next decades to go forward. You know, there will be younger generations coming, and I think this is just a mandatory thing to do, and it's everybody's responsibility.
Yes, as company, it's our social responsibility and for sure our digital responsibility. And why? I would like to link this to our digital ethic part. And you know, now we drive the AI ethics topic and we have our specific guidelines where we have reference points. And it was amazing for us. And ethic is really a hygiene point because it opened us the door to go into a conversation with investors and more interesting with rating agencies. And was so amazing with 3 rating agencies. They told us that they haven't been familiar with digital ethics as a hygiene factor with regard to ethics. What does it mean? And we have an technology impact assessment. What does it mean? With kind of consequences does a use of a technology have for the company, for the society, for future, and even in geographic in a geographical dimension? And they were very keen on, and they told us now they are more open-minded. And maybe if you talk about GSG, it's more about GSGT with technology. It's an economical, societal, governmental environment, and now you have to put the T on it. And this is an inspiration. And so you can take a price on a product, on a service, but in the end, you will be the successful, sustainable company. My perspective.
Thank you. So there is one last question left, and it is related to the previous one. So does integer behavior pay off? Does the customer really pay more for ethical products and services? But how about investors and analysts? How do they look at that?
Yeah, well, look, I start again. It was a question in the beginning about investors. What weight do they put on your ethical code of behavior and your integrity as a company? I tell you, it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. We see it very obvious in the capital markets when something comes up on a company that is not ethical or doesn't stand for the integrity that people believe, their stock suffers. So investors put a huge amount of weight on what is your cultural makeup of this company? How do you deal with ethical standards and legal standards, of course? What is the integrity of your management system? Are your managers playing the role that you are talking about with your guiding principles? They put a huge weight on it. And Manuela just showed an example of rating agencies that rate companies supposedly only looking at their debt and their equities and their cash flows and income statements, but they're beginning to look at those elements as well. So I think it is, it is becoming a hygiene factor, right? If you don't have it, you're going to suffer. If you have it, you have to have great products as well in order to be able to be successful.
Yes. Thanks. So with everything that we've heard here today, it goes without saying that business ethics is of great importance to us as an organization. And it is up to us to live it. on a daily basis. Not waiting for anyone else. We should be doing it. It starts with us. So this was it, our All About Culture call. Keep a close eye on the Living Culture page on Yam for the follow-up of this session and for the next episode, which leaves me to thank the speakers here in the room. Thank you very, very much for taking the time, for being here. And to the colleagues in the live stream, thank you very much for joining us, for all your questions, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Very good.